This episode of Lawyers Tell All is brought to you by the Intake Academy. Are you ready to convert more callers to qualified cases, rapidly qualify good cases, and transform unqualified prospects to advocates for your firm, whether you're able to handle their case or not? Visit www.intakeacademy.com and discover how to cement relationships with more of your ideal clients. Get them to commit to you and send you more referrals than you ever thought possible. Welcome to the Lawyers Tell All podcast, where Chris Mullins, the preeminent sales and communications consultant in the legal industry, shows you how it looks through lawyers' eyes. Here, innovators in the trenches provide powerful insights that help you connect with new clients, handle the sometimes harsh realities of the legal profession, and embrace the mindsets needed to succeed. Be sure to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com. And while you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, lean in, tune in, and let's take a deep dive.
Hello, everyone. It's Chris Mullins with Lawyers Tell All, and today I'm going to interview Jessica Rios, one of my clients that I'm very, very proud of, and I'm going to let Jessica tell you a little bit about herself. Go ahead, Jessica.
Thank you, Chris, for having me and inviting me to do this. So my name is Jessica Rios. I've always been a litigation paralegal. I've worked in the legal field since since I was 21. So not to age myself here, but I guess 14, 15 years, which is what kind of led me to where I am today and then the role that I kind of fell into.
Yeah. So talk about a little bit about your role. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, so I am now the director of operations for Keller Swan Injury Attorneys. I, at one point, was a litigation paralegal and kind of operations at the same time. So I had to kind of juggle that for a little bit, which is very, very stressful. Just as we were growing, it's a new firm, just figuring out where everything and everyone fell into place.
Yeah.
So now I just run operations for the entire firm.
So, like, when you were doing paralegal, like right away, you were doing a little bit of other items too, or just paralegal then? How did that go?
So initially, I just did litigation paralegal work. That is all I had known. That is what I love to do. I still love it. I miss it a little bit, secretly. It's all I had ever known and what I thought I would do forever. Honestly, I didn't see myself doing anything else. And then there was a need, and I just kind of started filling those holes and the things that needed to be done at the office at that time. It was just a small group of people, so there was no one else at that time. And that's kind of what made me slowly start going that way. And so until we started growing and hiring more people. And then I just kind of shifted out of litigation and into operations. I felt like I knew what we needed and what people needed because I had done the work. So I think that was helpful in just trying to figure out what I thought was the right thing as we were getting bigger.
No, so like, what was the size of the firm back then? Was it just you and Chris Keller, or?
So when I came in, the firm had probably been going for a little over 2 years, maybe 2 to 3 years. I'd say closer to 2.
Mm-hmm.
We were probably about 15 people. We are now at close to 80 people.
Ooh.
And we're almost 6 years old. So it was a lot in a very short period of time. So that kind of pushed me over to operations very quickly and out of litigation.
Yeah. And so 15 people. And so as far as leaders, who were the leaders back then? You, Chris? Well, you sort of, not really though, right?
Yeah, I don't think I thought of myself as a leader. I was just doing what needed to be done. And I guess I was the go-to just because there was no one else. I kind of just became that person. So at that time, it was Chris Keller, mainly for me, honestly. And then the team just kind of started growing after that.
Mm-hmm. So for firms that are watching and listening, like if you could go back, well, is there anything that you would do differently? Or if you were teaching a group of law firms how to go from then to now, like in your particular role, what would you say to think about to do?
I would say take it one day at a time. It can be really, really stressful. I am a very anxious person. I stress about everything. I need to plan. I like things to be perfect. And so everything had to be really fast. And that's not how I am used to moving. So I would just say be patient. Think, just focus on what's happening in that moment and just try to one day at a time, one issue at a time. And what is the priority? What is the need right now? That would be my biggest advice, instead of thinking about it all at the same time, because it can get really overwhelming.
Yeah, and I'm guessing that the relationship is important too. And so what I mean by that is the relationship with Chris Keller and you and him, because I mean, back then, if you didn't have a good, trusting relationship or of like even kindness and respect, then you probably wouldn't be where you are today. I don't mean just you, I mean the firm. So is that what do you think about that? Is that true?
Yeah, I feel like when I think back, like our relationship has changed so much. I mean, I think not only because of the role that I was in and the role that I am in now, obviously it's been a while trying to work together and to grow everything together and bringing in the right people and having all those conversations that I wasn't used to having. It just kind of changes like the relationship. But the level of trust that I have for him and everybody else that's around the leadership table, I couldn't do it without that. Like that is 100% one of the most important things I think I personally need, and I couldn't see how you can grow to the level that we have without that.
Well, I mean, I see a lot of firms that they basically just throw people in roles. So like even if they had a situation like yours and the owner needs help with operations, administration, and all of that, they don't have the best relationship because they just kind of like throw them in and it's sink or swim.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have that good relationship, it's a relationship. And so you kind of figure it out together.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a game changer to have that. And I mean, I feel lucky to have that. Not everybody does. I have met lots of people that are just, they don't get along with their bosses, or they just have totally different opinions, or they don't agree on the same things, or they're trying to, move certain initiatives forward, but their bosses don't want to hear it. They have other thoughts. Like I have never felt that here and with the people that I work with. And I just feel lucky because I know not everybody has the same situation.
Mm-hmm. So like if you fast forward, because we've been together, I think now for maybe, I don't know, a year and a half or something like that, right?
I think so.
Yeah. And when we first started, it was just KMW Legal. So Chris and you and the small team. How many people when we first started? Was it so? No way.
In the 20s or 30s by the time you and I kind of came together. Most of our growth happened this year, honestly.
Yeah, and I'm guessing, wow, so, and I got to see all of it, like outside looking in. So I remember meeting with you and Chris, and just you and Chris, and you didn't have the merger, but you didn't have an intake team either.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of that, and then the merger so now it's Keller Swan. And you and I met all the time for the first year. We don't meet as much anymore. We don't really meet that much at all, just because you're higher up in director of operations and there's other people because of the merger. And then even Erica is helping you now. So like so many things changed, but to think that when we first met, it was like 15 or 16 people and now there's in the 80s.
Yeah. And it's not slowing down. So we're just bracing ourselves for what's coming. So
I remember talking to you and Chris, and like Chris was interviewing me, kind of, the three of us, but I remember Chris interviewing me and he was asking me those tough questions and wanting to know about growth and data and KPIs, and he wanted virtual and all of that. And it all came true. It all came true.
Yeah. Yeah. It was, we didn't have an intake team when you and I met. That's why we came together. Exactly. And I mean, our intake team is knocking it out of the park now. It's just unbelievable. Like what you and I kind of started together, and then I just kind of passed on to other people, but the team is just rocking in there, and we couldn't have done that without your help for sure.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that, but so like for anybody listening and watching, like you can do it. You can have a firm that might be smaller. Maybe you don't have an intake team, or you have something and you're not, brothers, sisters, mothers, fathers. Everybody's helping out, your cousins and everybody, right? and then you can just kind of go crazy. I mean, you can get what you want to have, but you got to have the right people. And the firm is lucky to have you. I mean, you and I worked very closely together for the first year, like at least once a week, maybe more. I don't really remember anymore, but to kind of work through it. So what my message to everybody is, you got to have the relationships. You don't have to have all the answers, but if you don't have the good people relationships, yeah, you're going to be hard pressed to get where you want to get. No matter who you hire, no matter if you hire an outside coach or you create an inside, it doesn't matter. You've got to have the right people. And so it's worth putting your energy into that, right?
Yeah, I agree. Finding those people, like finding you, we have other people within the firm that we had to connect with for whatever it is, right? Finding the right people, building those relationships, and being intentional, I think, about where you want to go, having those meetings, having those conversations, actually doing something after having those conversations, not just having them and then kind of letting them sit. So, which I think is what you and I did a lot when we started.
Yeah.
We would have a meeting. We would say, okay, by next meeting, we need to have A, B, and C done. And if I didn't, I would let you know why, and what we were doing and where we were. But just being intentional about it, not just kind of like saying you're going to do something and then not do it.
Yeah. But we knew every time we get together, oh no, there's going to be something else. Oh, no, we're going to do it. Going to do it now, right?
Yeah.
What would you say about mergers to folks? Like any firms that are thinking about doing that or are in the middle of it? Do you have any thoughts for anyone, like advice or anything?
Yeah. I would also go back to being patient and not rushing into all the things that need to be done. I think a lot of the times people think certain things can be done overnight, and then you end up paying for it later down the road. And so just sitting down, making a good plan, figuring out what are the things that need to be done before we announce, before we hire more people, before we build this new team, before we open up this new office, whatever that is, right? Patience, and bringing two groups of people together in a merge can also be very difficult. So patience, I feel like, is key.
The first thing that came to my mind when you just said it was, well, it's kind of like, you're getting married and you're bringing two families together, like at the holidays for the party around the table or something like that for the first time. Right? Everybody's trying to get along, and you don't know who. It's the same thing. It's not any different.
Yeah. You're building trust with a new group of people. They're trying to trust you. You're trying to trust them, and just redirecting where things go, and it can be a little messy for a window of time, but that's okay as long as you have a plan and you're intentional about how things are supposed to be and where you're trying to go, and just keeping in mind that it's not going to happen overnight. It takes a long time. We are almost a year in to the merge, and there's still a lot of things that we're working through, so it doesn't happen right away.
Yeah. And when you just said a window of time, that's right. It's a good way to think about it, is because whatever it is that you're going through now, it's just a window of time right now.
Yeah.
It will change, but it's just right now. And but like with all the growth, the merge of the growth, intake before the growth, during the growth, now it's exciting, it's wonderful, but it does cause, I will say, some challenges, right? Fast operationally, because behind the scenes, okay, what about attorneys, more attorneys and paralegals and all of that? We all want that when we're thinking, let's grow, but then when it's you're in the middle of it, it's like, oh, wow, now what are we going to do? So, but you just figure it out. It's another window in time, right?
Exactly. It's a window of time and you just kind of take it as it comes. And then I think as long as like leadership is aligned and what the goal is, and because if you're not, then, like when it comes to hiring and all of that, if you're not aligned there and you're not hiring, you're not bringing in the help, like then you're not going anywhere. You're just burning out the people that you have in-house, and eventually then it just turns into a different issue. But getting through that window of time and getting the things you need as quick as you can, but not without rushing. I mean, I know that kind of sounds crazy to say, but just taking your time, but being intentional about filling those roles and holes and things that need to be fixed to get to where you want to go.
Yeah. But I would imagine, though, too, back to relationships at the end of the day, with all of the growth and all the things that you want to achieve, if you don't have that good foundation of a relationship, then the times that you can't just like really plan it out, you kind of have to dive in, it can be worse. It can be more difficult. So I think it's worth putting your time and energy into the relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so Chris Keller and I are very intentional about meeting every week. I send him an agenda at 24 hours before our meeting. I let him know what I want to talk about. Like I try to limit to 3 things at a time just because I don't like to overdo it every week. But there's been times when I've tried to cancel because there might be something going on, like whatever it may be, an emergency. And he's like, no, we don't cancel. Let's reschedule to a little later, whatever we need to do. But just,
okay,
we kind of do that with each other. And so being intentional about keeping those meetings that are important and not just kind of letting that go because then you don't know what's happening. He doesn't know what's happening. And then as operations, then I don't feel like I have the support that I need. So being intentional with those communications and building that relationship, because every time you're having a meeting discussing work, but you're working on the relationship at the same time.
I love that in that example, Chris will say, no, we're going to have it calculated.
Yeah.
I love that. That right there, we could just take that lesson and
I've tried it a couple of times and I always know what he's going to say, but I'm like, maybe he'll say, let's reschedule because we have so much going on. And he's like, no, we don't reschedule. We always meet. We always talk. And so I love that he does that with me. And so it's just, it's good for the relationship, which ends up being really good for the business.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome. Chris has a podcast, right?
Yes. He does. Yeah, it's called First Lights.
First Lights, right? First Lights. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so everybody should check that out. Chris's podcast, right?
Yeah, he's got some pretty cool people on there.
That's awesome. Well, any last words for everybody here, Jessica?
Well, thank you for inviting me and allowing me to do this. This is the first time I've ever done this, so I, wanted to step out of my comfort zone. I guess just like I mentioned, be patient, be intentional, and just, work on those relationships. That's what I would say.
Yeah, well, upward and onward. You did a great job. Awesome. I love doing it because it's kind of like just hanging out, chit-chatting. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, great work. Upward and onward, okay?
Thank you so much, Chris.
All right. So long, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you for tuning in to Lawyers Tell All, where Chris Mullins takes you on a journey with lawyers in the trenches who show you the realities of what it takes to succeed in this chaotic, crowded, ever-changing profession. Remember to visit our website at www.lawyerstellall.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on Lawyers Tell All.